Nobody going to jail yet.
We don't want to go to jail. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's the Business? I'm your host, Angela Smith, and we have with us
Corey
and Tavia.
And today we have a special guest with us. His name is Jeff Williams. Say hello, Jeff.
Hello, everyone.
And we are really excited about what's going on today. Want to say happy birthday to all of those folks who had a birthday over the weekend. Happy birthday.
Yes,
happy birthday.
Yeah. March birthdays, not only that, but it is the beginning of spring. So the flowers are blooming. The birds are chirping. This Louisiana weather is nothing to be played with.
Not at all.
Honey, we have all four seasons in one day. All four seasons in one day. Also, I want to say, I don't know if anybody knows anything that's going on around the community for the next weekend, but if you guys aren't doing anything, I would love for you to go to LSU Theater, or you can click on newventuretheater.org, and they are having a play entitled, I think it's Fetch Clay, Make Man. It's a really interesting story about Muhammad Ali and his fight right before the Sonny Liston fight. So it's really, really interesting, and it's a different take on Muhammad the man, Muhammad the fighter, Muhammad the husband, and Muhammad the champion. Absolutely. It's a great play. I love the script. Again, it's New Venture Theater is the production team for this play, and it's going to be held at the LSU Theater. And for tickets or ticket information, feel free to go to newventuretheater.org. All right? So, let's get into what we are talking about. First, let's talk about Jeff. Again, welcome, Jeff. We are so glad to have you.
So glad to be here. Thank you.
Glad to have you. Jeff is an author. He is also a husband, and he has amazing sons that he has raised. And he's written a book entitled 5-Star Boys. And, well, you know, before I start talking, because I talk quite a bit, Jeff, why don't you tell us a little bit of what your book is about?
Well, 5-Star Boys is really about my life. At 21 years old, I became a father for the first time. Before my 23rd birthday, I was not only a father, but I found myself a single father.
Wow.
I actually went to custody, got full custody of my oldest son. Found myself as a single father, spent several thousands of dollars and went through a lot of trouble to try and convince people that I should be the one to raise my son as opposed to his mother. And so I was blessed and fortunate actually to win my custody case, get custody of this 15-month-old little boy.
Wow.
And then I looked at him one morning and realized that now that I've gone to court and convinced these people that I'm the one that should raise him, now I have to somehow figure out how to do that.
Right.
And realized that I definitely, being nothing more than a baby myself, I realized that I did not really know. But what I made a decision was that I was determined not to fail him. And so I went on this journey, a lot of prayer. Also a lot of meetings with my own parents, my grandparents, other people who I perceived to be doing fairly well as parents. And just through a long, lengthy process, I finally came to a point that I thought that I was doing a pretty decent job of raising kids, but I don't think you really know if you've done a good job or not until they become full-grown men.
Well, amen.
And so, you know, that son that I was talking about here in the book is actually 23 years of age now. Graduated from high school with honors, graduated from college with honors, and so also had a second son, and after that, 5 years later, I went to court, got custody of that son as well.
Wow.
Before getting married, moving here to Baton Rouge, and so that second son as well graduated from high school with honors, got an academic scholarship to LSU. So after being able to successfully navigate that water and see them develop into grown men, I decided then that maybe I knew a little something about what I was doing. And maybe I should write that story and kind of tell other parents, because I would get asked all the time by football coaches, by teachers, by administrators, what is it that you're doing with your sons? Because they still say yes sir, they say yes ma'am, they say no sir, no ma'am, they say please, they say thank you. None of the other young men here display that type of behavior, so what is it that you're doing at home? And it was so much so that I would have football coaches, administrators ask me to come into their schools to speak to other young men. And so just from being questioned about it for so long, I decided maybe it's time that we try and kind of write a manuscript on it. We've all heard that saying that parenting does not come with a manual.
Absolutely not.
But I said, what if we try and take a shot?
Let's try it, right?
Let's at least try to take a shot, at least from my perspective, my point of view. And I know there's some other people out there who are some phenomenal parents as well who may have some different point of views. But this was me taking a shot to say, let's try and put together a manual. And you will have to tweak it and twerk it some way, different ways to make it work. Because one of the things that all of us who are parents know is that it's changing, it's evolving every single day.
Absolutely.
When the young man is 5 and you think you got things figured out, then all of a sudden he's 13, 14, and the rules to the game's change. So we have to adjust and make those adjustments. So you never quite know if you got a handle on it, like I said, until you can look at the finished product.
Right.
And even in going to custody and getting custody of my son, the promise that I made to his mother, although we were not on good terms, that as you can imagine, she was not happy with the fact that we were going to court. She definitely was not happy with the fact that I became victorious in that custody case. But one of the things, even in the midst of difficult times, that I promised to her was, there's going to be a day and time that comes when I present back to you a young man that we can all be proud of, we can all take pleasure in saying that he belongs to us. And even though it's going to be a rough journey between here and there,
right, absolutely,
that's a promise that I'm going to make, and I'm going to commit myself to that. So, and it was a blessing that when he graduated from college, his mother came down from Buffalo, New York, and she finally, after 20 plus years of us being bitter and hateful toward one another, she finally said that she was pleased with the product that I was able to give back to her. And so that for me was what it was all about. It was never about trying to be hateful to her. It was never about thinking that she was bad or terrible. It was just, we came to a point where I think a lot of parents need to, especially in this day and time when you're seeing a lot of kids be born into relationships that are non-marital relationships. There are just times when the parents go two separate ways, and a decision needs to be made as it relates to who can give this child the best opportunity.
Right.
Especially,
and that's the goal. The goal is always to make sure that the child, has the best opportunity.
Always.
And again, I'll tell everyone what the name of your book is and how they can get a copy of it if they like.
The name of the book is 5 Star Boys: How to Make Your Son Stand Up, Stand Out, and Separate Himself from the Competition. And you can get a copy of the book at my website, www.jwillseniorspeaks.com, or it's also available on Amazon.com.
Amazon, honey, because he's an author. A published author. I think that's awesome. And so, kind of just to stay in step with talking about 5 Star Boys and raising young men. And I want to also say that this book is not just for African American, how to raise an African American man necessarily. This is to raise, if you have a child, but it's very difficult to raise boys, I think, sometimes in this day and age.
Absolutely.
And probably children altogether. But this book is geared for everyone. Anyone who's trying to raise, your child, you're raising a son. And just some helpful tips. Like we said before, I am the mother of 5 biological children, and I also have a bonus daughter, and they are none of them by any means the same. They are 5 completely different personalities, and I have to think 5 completely different ways in my process of raising them. So please get your copy. I got me a copy, child. Get you one. Get you a copy. But to stay in step of what we're talking about, I wanted to talk about, because here again, the purpose of our show is to entertain you, but most importantly, we want to encourage you, we want to uplift you, and we want to make sure that you have something in this journey that can make you go a little bit further and that can help you as you do go a little bit further. So I want to talk about things that sometimes people they just don't want to talk about out of fear or just embarrassment. And one of the things I decided when we start talking about your book and 5 Star Boys was raising black young men in America.
Wow.
What's going on with young black men in America? And so I was reading a lot of different statistics, and one of the most alarming things, or should I say maybe 2 of the most alarming things that I have read, and the unfortunate part is that if you are an African American person, you know that these are not, it's not anything that you actually have to read, it's something that is very serious, and we already know it, is that the incarceration rate of African American men is far higher than any other race.
Yes.
And in addition to that, the rate of African American young black men who are killed, especially by police, are far higher than any other race. And I found that it really, it bothers me to an extent that I do feel that it's racial. I mean, I have two African American men with me here who have not obviously been killed by police. But I mean, what has it been like with you? Have you ever had like just been stopped by the police just because of the car you drive or anything like that?
Absolutely, and I'm sure Jeff would have more experience on this. But yeah, definitely, there's this perceived fear of the African American male, and I've found that no matter how I'm dressed, no matter how I speak, no matter if I'm opening the door or whatever, if people see me and they have a fear of me, especially those outside of my race, I can get on the elevator now, and there's a person that goes into the corner. So I've tried to, every chance I get, I try to combat every stat. I've tried to combat every perceived notion, every negative thought you have of African American men.
Sure.
I will hold the door open for you. I'm going to speak. To show you there is nothing to fear. I'll get on the elevator now and I'll move away like, but it's those things, and I don't know how we've gotten to this place. But just raising a young man in this time frame, it's got to be a frightful thing. I'm sure you fear with a lot of your children.
I fear for my boys, absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
you automatically perceive to be a threat. Automatically.
Yeah.
I've got to pay special attention to where my hands are, what I say. I mean, I have a fear of the cop now. If I get stopped for traffic, I'm shaking.
Yeah.
How do we get there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have been stopped by a police officer for multiple reasons. I've been stopped because of the type of car that I've been driving before. And I've had different experiences with different police officers. It's been, I've actually had a gun pointed at me by a police officer.
Wow.
In the middle of nowhere, in a small town in the middle of nowhere, where I feared that we were in the type of rural area that if he decides to pull this trigger, it'll be hours before anybody even knows that I'm out here. And even in that particular stop, I was traveling from here in Baton Rouge back to Northeast Louisiana on a Sunday afternoon. This was when my now wife was my girlfriend, and we were dating, had a long distance relationship. I'd been here for the weekend visiting her, was headed home. Had on nothing but a white t-shirt, a platinum chain. At that point, I was much younger than I am now, still wore a platinum chain around my neck. But I had a police officer actually get irate with me because he pulled me over, he stopped me, he asked me if I had any weapons in my car, and I pointed to a Bible on my passenger seat and said, that's the only weapon that I have in this car.
Right.
Really said it jokingly, but you would have thought I slapped the brother in the face.
Wow. Yeah.
He ordered me to get out of the car with his hand on his holster the whole time.
So the whole time, and you're probably you're fearful because you're like, what did I do? Like, what did I really do to? And I'll tell you, it's just one of the things that I hate. And Tay, I know you're raising a daughter right now, but you're married to an African American man, and so it's really disheartening for me that when my kids walk out of a door and I say, be careful, I am so fearful that something is going to happen to them that they did not warrant, but because of the way they look, it really frightens me. And just a story, I live in a pretty decent neighborhood, and I remember my son, who is my youngest son, one day he wanted to walk to a store to go get like some candy or chips or something of that nature, and so he comes home and he's like, man, this cop was following me. Now let me add this, my son is a gifted student. He does very well. He's always respectful to all people. He does not wear his pants hanging below his butt. Not that it really should matter on what your attire is. It should matter the person that you are. And I get that so many things happen in general, but not just with African American men. And that's my thing. I do get the hypersensitivity of people, and they're afraid of dealing with certain things. But to make the long story short, my son is walking to the store to go get chips, in a nice neighborhood where we live, and the cop follows him slowly in his cop car, and then eventually passes him and looks out the window and does this with his hand.
Wow.
Like, how am I supposed to tell him if something occurs, you need to call 911? Like, the very persons that I'm telling you should be there to protect and serve you are the ones that are threatening to kill you, and you've done absolutely nothing, you know? So I was reading this article, and it was talking about the huge racial disparities on how police use force, and the differences between African Americans and any other race. And then I went on to watch all of these videos on how police officers will stop white people who are brandishing guns. I mean, they're getting out with guns, and they subdue them without using their guns. I was going to say without weapons. They may hit them with their, their club in the leg to make them fall, but they have not killed them.
Right.
I mean, what do you guys think that is about? I mean, do you really think it is just racial? Do you think there is something that we are doing as African Americans? I mean, it's sad that I feel like we got to have the talk with our boys, you know what I'm saying? Not even with our boys, with our kids. We have the talk with our African American kids.
You do, I mean, because essentially, there are people who are like, we shouldn't have to do this. But at the end of the day, I know the situation is crazy, but I want my child to come home to continue to have the discussion.
Right, yeah.
So it's like in the meantime, I still have to have the talk. Listen, you already know, be respectful. And I've seen tons of videos people outside of the African American race, I mean, irate or cursing or throwing their hands at the cops and all these things, but no deadly force is used.
Right.
So why with our race and our young men, why is that the first plan of action to just pull a weapon? What happened that they are so threatened by a young African American man? I mean, in many cases these are children,
Yeah,
I mean, and this is just so passionate to me, but I don't know how we combat this. In the meantime, we got to keep our kids, our young males safe in the meantime. But how do we do that and have the discussion and make change?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't even think that we can combat it.
Yeah.
I think the energy that we spend trying to combat it is energy wasted. We could never get around who we are.
Yeah, that's true.
We can't earn enough to still not be African American people.
That's true.
We can't dress well enough to not be African American people.
That.
We cannot change that fact. And so I think as a race of people, we just have to continue operating in love. First of all, for one another. Love ourselves, then love one another.
So
we have to continue to build ourselves up, edify one another, and then just be prayerful that God will just keep us safe.
Well, amen.
And the harsh reality is all of us won't be safe, but we're just trying to minimize the amount of those of us who are not. I mean, because you cannot. You can be walking to the store, mind your own business, and you're still seen as a threat. Imagine this, and this is kind of one of my reasons for writing the book. Imagine a young man, African American man. He's the most feared person in America, yet he's the most endangered species in America all at the same time.
Wow.
So can you imagine the confusion in that young man's mind?
Yeah.
Because on one hand, he's feared more than anybody, even when he's not, like you said, I can just get on the elevator and it changes the atmosphere just because I got on the elevator. But at the same time, I'm dying at a higher rate than everybody. I'm incarcerated more than everybody else. I'm a high school dropout at a higher rate than everybody else. I am an endangered species. And people don't see the African American male that way, but he is an endangered species. And for me, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. As a parent, you do have to have that conversation with them. My conversation with my sons was always simple. Do whatever's necessary to make it home.
Amen.
You be as polite, you be as courteous, you be as still, you do whatever is necessary to make it home.
We can have the discussion once you get home.
I can have the discussion once you get home, but I also get this, I get an opportunity to fight for a kid that's still alive.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because even when I'm fighting, if I'm fighting for a kid that I've already buried, I still don't feel the sense that I can win.
Yeah.
You see, because I can never get my son back.
Yeah.
So I tell my sons all the time, allow me as your father to fight for a child who is still living and breathing. I have much more compassion. I'm more passionate about
Yeah.
fighting for a son that I can still hug, that I
Yeah.
can still have a conversation with, than a son that I've already buried, and I'm just fighting for his memory as opposed to fighting for his future.
Yeah.
And so that's as clear an instruction as I can give them, because there's no one or two things that you can do that will assure that. I tell them,
Absolutely.
you be mindful of what's going on, and you do whatever is necessary just to make it home to
That's
them.
right.
If there was a problem, if you feel that you were mistreated, you make it home to me. You let me know how you feel that you were wrong, and then it's our job as your parents at that point to fight for you.
Yeah.
But give us the opportunity to fight for a living son.
That's
I
good.
love that. You know, with that being said, and we've really got to wrap the time up. We really appreciate you guys tuning in and staying tuned in with us for such important discussions. And we certainly want you to chime in, give us some comments, give us some feedback. Let us know what you think about African American men.
The comment section.
In the comment section, where is it?
Yes,
Is it
right down
right
there.
down
It's
there? Right there. In the comment section. So let us know, because one of the other things, and I did want to say this, is that I was reading, and there were 15 prominent cases concerning black people who were killed by police or died while they were in custody.
Wow.
And of those 15 cases, and this is between 2014 and 2018, but of 15 of these prominent cases, in 6 of the cases, the officers were fired. In 8 of the cases, the officers were indicted or charged, but not convicted. In 11 of the cases, there were settlements that were reached.
Wow.
And 3 of those, which is far more than half. And in only 3 of the cases were the officers actually convicted. 3 of those cases, the officers were actually convicted, and the persons that they killed did not have weapons, and they did not do anything. And so it was strictly fear. It was strictly, in my opinion, this is all my opinion, this was just fear, and only 3 of these people were convicted. And so, someone asks and says, oh, well, they settle. Well, they settle because that's what all they're trying to do is they're trying to get money. Like, that really bothers me, because what I told a friend of mine is a lot of times when people make settlements, if somebody says, they kind of look at the big picture, and they say, okay, my son is dead, and nothing I'm going to do is going to bring him back. But if I can settle and get $250,000, which, let me just say, it's a lot of money. It doesn't go very far anymore. You buy a house and a car, your $250,000 is gone. But these people would much rather change something in their lives than watch this officer get off and they get absolutely nothing at all.
And a lot of times, these young men are helping to provide in some capacity.
Yeah.
It's a life loss.
Yeah, yeah.
So you took that life, took that from that person.
Right.
So you rearranged their entire life.
Yeah.
So,
And even if they weren't always doing the right things, I feel like when you take their lives, and they didn't deserve for their lives to be taken, your life was not endangered, then
they saw no value.
you've taken away their ability to have a chance to change.
Right.
So I really, just me, this is just me talking. If you have listened to this show and you've heard anything at all that we've said, I really want you, especially if you are not African American, I would really want you to give us some feedback, but I really want you to sit back and just reevaluate. Go to YouTube. This is stuff that I don't put out there. If you go to YouTube and just look at some simple videos of the same incidents that occur and with any other race other than the African American race, and these folks are not killed, they are not murdered, they are not, they don't suffer any violence at the hands of the police, and somehow they manage to subdue them, arrest them, and then charge them with whatever the crime is. I just want our race of people to be afforded the same opportunities.
Absolutely.
I think that a lot of times there are some times that I think African Americans may sometimes fight for not just being equal, but they want better rights than others. And I don't think that's fair. But what I do think is that if we operated in fairness and we saw fairness far more often than we currently do, then our fight and our struggle wouldn't be to be better, but we would feel better with being equal.
Well, justice, if it's about justice.
If it's about justice.
If it's about justice,
Yeah.
justice is something that is written in black and white in the pages of law.
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
So,
no,
so,
that's the
so
truth,
if
right?
it's just about justice and it's not about racism or it's not about white supremacy or not about fear or not about any of these other things, the points that we raised, if it's just about justice, then why is it so hard to get equality when justice is written in black and white?
Right, and
So,
justice
you know,
should be blind.
It should be
so
blind.
she doesn't know the color of your skin.
Should not. Justice should not. Justice does not know.
Right.
So I think for anyone who's involved in that decision-making process, whether you're the officer, whether you're the district attorney, whether you're a prosecutor, whoever you are, whether you're the judge, I think what everybody needs to do is let's just get back to justice.
Yeah.
Let's just get back
Take
to
your personal
justice.
feelings out of it. Take your personal experiences, past or present experiences out of it, and just do what the law says. Give everybody
Do
the
what the
same
law
opportunity
says.
to get the same justification that the law provides for
I agree.
everybody. Or
Do
it's
what the
supposed to.
law says and raise a 5-star boy. That's what you should do. Raise 5-star boys and get out of your own feelings.
Don't
Get
forget
out
about
your
the book.
feelings. Don't forget about the book. Say it again. Tell them how to get the book.
5-Star Boys, you can get the book at Amazon.com or at my website, www.jwillseniorspeaks.com.
Thank you so much. We are so glad that you tuned in. Please remember, if you want to continue to get more information about our shows, please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. What's the Business? That's BIZNESS. And please like us on our Facebook page. We love your watching.
Love your
See you again soon.
See you again.
Bye.